So financial fitness is a journey. So again, we get stuck as soon as we say finance, it's money, dollars, cents, numbers, spreadsheets. It's more than that. Wealth encapsulates everything. I believe that, just like you said, the financial part of the journey is self-development, is personal development, and it's an act of self-love.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show to help you unlock your full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life you really want. Let's get started. Hi, freedom fighters. Do you want to be financially free? And do you want to get fit and stay fit? And what if achieving financial freedom and fitness are actually integrally related? Now, I've probably got you scratching your head thinking, what the hell do I mean by this? Surely financial freedom and fitness have nothing to do with each other? But I beg to differ. If you've been listening to me for a while, you'll know that I'm a big believer that sustainable success lies at the intersection of what I call the three Fs: self, health, and wealth, where self revolves around what's between your ears, what you believe, what you think, expect, your vision, your values, your outlook, and your attitudes. Health is about the happy habits, the daily disciplines, and the rewarding rituals that you develop and do consistently and persistently in all aspects of your life. And your self and health then combine to create the power of exponential growth that leads to your wealth in however you decide to define it. And sustainable success is a bit like a three-legged stool. You must develop all three equally to remain stable, because if you ignore any of them, eventually it's all going to come crashing down. Now, in the health sphere of this success triangle, you've probably all heard about the concept of preventative health when it comes to achieving fitness. And this is about developing healthy habits and regular routines in relation to exercise, diet, sleep, and breathing, etc., that combine over the long term to produce sustainable results. If you want to run a marathon, you don't just read a book or watch a YouTube video and then throw on your runners and jog continuously for 42 Ks. You're just not likely to last the distance, and in fact, you'll probably end up in hospital trying to do it. You need to develop a regular training regime and gradually build up and stretch your endurance and fitness over time. Initially, and for quite some time, you won't see any obvious difference in your fitness or performance, but just like the exponential growth curve of compounding returns, eventually you'll be able to run the marathon comfortably. And this same consistent, persistent, patient approach via regular routines to achieve fitness is exactly what you need to adopt with your money habits in order to achieve your version of financial freedom. It's what I like to call preventative wealth that mirrors the approach to preventative health, where your daily discipline of taking regular financial supplements over the long term keeps you financially fit so that you can last the distance and live comfortably on your long-term money marathon. You see, I strongly believe that what stands between us and even our most ambitious dreams has far less to do with possessing some natural talent, magical skill or luck, and far more to do with how we see the future and how we break big dreams and challenges down into small actionable steps. It's not quick, but just making those continuous small steps and the compounding nature of all of those millions of decisions that we take on a regular basis means that even a marginal improvement in our approach can have a huge impact on our end results. Just a 1% improvement in doing it every day means we're 365% better at the end of the year. We just need to start with the end in mind and then just focus on the next step ahead with the belief that if we just keep doing it, we're going to make it. And continuously doing and improving our self, health and wealth means we become the person we need to become on the journey to be able to sustain our dream lifestyle long term. So financial freedom and independence is integrally related to our fitness. It requires the same end goal vision and long-term approach to just continuously doing the do, day in, day out, come rain, hail or snow, and then believing in yourself and the process. This is the essence of creating wealth by stealth and living by design, not by default. But what does financial freedom really mean to you? Has it all become a bit of an unachievable pipe dream that you've almost but given up on? And imagine what it would be like if you're determined to achieve your version of financial freedom, but the deck is stacked against you due to invisible inbuilt systemic biases and barriers. A situation where your earnings were on average 23% lower than others. A situation where you had less opportunity to borrow. A situation where your super balance of retirement is on average 28% less than others. A situation where 33% of your group stop work with no retirement savings at all. And a situation where you were forced to take years of unpaid leave out of the workforce to care for your family. A situation where not that many years ago, you weren't even able to go on the title of a property and you weren't even allowed to borrow. And all of this just because of your gender. I'm sure that you'd feel that all of this was actually totally unfair. Yet, this is exactly the situation faced by women in Australia. So, what can hardworking Aussie women and those who care about them do about it? Well, this is exactly what our special guest Amanda Thompson is determined to change and what she's going to talk about today with the release of her great new book, Financially Fit Women, How to Become Your Own CFO, Confident, Focused, and on top of your money. And if you're a male listening to this like myself, don't think that what we're going to talk about today isn't equally applicable to you, because the fundamentals of financial fitness apply to everyone, regardless of race, religion, colour, creed, or circumstance. So listen up, because you're about to enjoy some pearls of wealth-building wisdom from Amanda, who's an award-winning financial planner, an author, a 3-times world championship qualifying Ironwoman, and the founder and director of Endurance Financial. Amanda is living proof of the benefits of developing financial fitness after overcoming a series of serious life challenges, which I'm sure she's going to share with us today. So if you're serious about taking control of your finances and gaining confidence in managing your money on your road to the financial freedom that you deserve, you're going to love this deep dive conversation on financial fitness with Amanda Thompson. So welcome. Let's get invested, Amanda.
Hello, Bushy. How are you?
Awesome. Look, I've been looking forward to catching up with you for a while. I really did enjoy your book. I think it's got some fundamentals there, and I love the analogy of the financial fitness because, as I've sort of, I guess, expanded on in the introduction, there are a lot of parallels with that to achieving anything in life. But Amanda, before we sort of get into the nitty-gritties, I'd love for you to sort of talk to us a bit about what do you do differently, and most importantly, why do you do what you do?
I think the fact that I'm the gender that you described so well and tick so many boxes in that statistics that you gave, and I also add to the fact that I'm divorced and a single mum of 2 kids. So, you know, the ticks keep going for me in my lived experiences. And I think with that, Bushy, I've been a financial planner for over 20 years now, and as life's evolved for me, you tend to attract like people. So when I started my own business, it was open for all, and it still is open for all. There is no discrimination at all at Endurance Financial. But what I saw was women in similar situations to me seeking me out for help. And then I started to realise that there were so many similarities, male, female, other, when it came to financial advice, that what had been bubbling away in me through all my corporate years was still there. And what I realised was that financial advice, so many people believe it was only for the wealthy. And that's not the case. And it's something that I need to address, and I wanted to address, and hence the offerings and the way I do financial advice now has changed to include or make financial advice both affordable and accessible for anyone, regardless of what their assets are like or their pay packet is.
Very good point. Well, it's a great segue into my next question, and that is, can you sort of expand on what's your mission and purpose, and what are your values that support and drive those?
So probably my mission is that I've just spoken about the misconception that financial advice is specifically for the wealthy. But if we flip that, we are all driven by the same motivations. And when it comes to money, the main motivator is fear. So the decisions we make around money are usually based on fear. And in my industry, it's one of the most potent forces that makes us decide what we're going to do. And there's really two main fears. One, that we're not going to be able to provide sufficiently for our families. So there's the fear of, which is everyone's, they want to look after their loved ones. And the second one is that fear of that we aren't going to have enough in retirement to actually enjoy all the hard work that we're doing right now. But the really key message there, Bushy, is that in those two common drivers, there is nothing that says that there has to be a specific asset base or salary attached to it. Everyone is the same. And so that is my mission, is to be able to provide the stepping stones, for want of a better word, or, the build up to the marathon, and for people to start auditing their own finances, but more than just numbers and spreadsheets, going all the way back to making sure that your goals are aligned to who you are so that you're going to have more financial success in the long run.
Love it. Well, we're going to deep dive into the financial fitness piece shortly, but before we do that, I'd love for you to give us a bit of a Reader's Digest of your own journey in terms of what you've invested your time, energy, and money in over the years, and why, and how has this actually led you to where you are and what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I started my career at two of the major banks and quite quickly realised that I had this love of business and so pushed and worked my way to become a business financial planner at two of the corporates. The problem that I faced, or the first problem I faced, that I was a very young girl in an old man's world. I had stints where I was the only female in a national team of 26 and I was 10 years younger than the next person. So even that was a struggle, because I either had to choose to try and be someone I wasn't to fit in, or I had to rebel against the system and then feel quite lonely. And I did this for quite some time. And I am blessed in that this experience made me realise I love my job. I do not wake up not wanting to go to my job. So, the old saying, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And that's me. I do feel that. But when I became a single mum, all of a sudden I was working full-time and trying to look after two kids at home, and I'm having a giggle because this Reader's Digest is going. I'm the person that's going to the end of this story right now. I found myself. I landed in hospital at age 34 in intensive care with what can only be described as the optimal of burnout and stress, in that I'd had a heart attack at the age of 34, and so. I'm this person, challenges face us all. So it took me a while. I didn't do it instantaneously, but I went, this is telling me something. The world's telling me that I'm not happy where I am, not what I'm doing, but where I am. My values weren't aligned. And so eventually Endurance Financial was born from the fact that I did not want to be subjected to an organisation that wasn't led by my same values, and also that had landed me in hospital so severely ill. And then the slow creep out of that, the slow creep out of even the discrimination of having been sick. And, I don't talk about it often, but when you talk about the big conglomerates that are only interested in making money for their shareholders, they forget about the people that work for them. I was seen as a liability for quite some time. And it really, I felt that a lot, because I'd given so much. In essence, there'd been a part of my marriage that I'd given to that organisation. And, the mum guilt's real, the time that I'd given to my kids for that organisation. And so started Endurance Financial with a very, very clear goal and of money. So I have invested my money in Endurance Financial, but wisely, and that if I took a leap into my own business, I had to be able to put food on the table and support the roof over the head of my girls and I. And so I gave myself a very stringent business plan and said to myself, 6 months, I'll give myself 6 months, because that's the only capital backing I've got. Otherwise, I'm going to go and have to knock on someone's door and get a job again. And, I thrived. So I didn't even spend a cent of the money that I'd put away.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then, just living life as a woman. I'm 47. I have to count that. So I've got less than 40 years left, if you go by life expectancy. And just to add a couple more stats to your start of this podcast, I'm going to live 6 years longer than the same male counterpart, which means that my retirement savings need to last longer than that of a male.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, in less than 10 years, I hit the really alarming statistic of being the highest demographic of homelessness in Australia, which is women over the age of 55. So you can see, as I get older, my motivations don't change. It's kind of like the life that I'm living, and I understand I want to make sure I protect the generations that come after us from having that same issue.
Yeah, and I love that, and great motivators in that context. I want to circle back a bit for a second, if I can, Amanda, because that those really challenging events of obviously losing your marriage and becoming a single parent, and a heart attack at 34, they're pretty big flashing red lights in terms of some discomfort in life generally. Can you take us back to those times and talk us through how you felt in the lead up to it? What do you think triggered those issues, and more importantly, what did you learn from them that has then inspired you to go on and do what you're doing now?
Some people will tell you I haven't learned a thing, Bushy, because I do Ironman triathlons, and it's not really taking a step back, is it? But we won't go down that path. What I learned was, and I do say this in my book, I do give little tidbits of my life in the book, and one of those is when I actually thought there was a potential of that I wouldn't wake up the next day, there was an air of calm over me. And I know that sounds really weird, but I practice what I preach, and I had financially secured my children's future by way of insurances. So I knew that I did not have to worry about money for them or money for myself should this be a long-term factor. And so that, for me, I know as scary as it is, if I was going to leave this earth on that day, my kids were going to be okay financially. And so that's one of the biggest things I learned. And when you speak, and the funny thing about being a financial advisor, when you go and do choice surveys and things like that, we're seen as insurance salesmen, which I am not, but I am so glad I had it. And I still have that conversation about our incomes are actually our number one asset that we have. Our ability to earn money for our family is an asset that people do not think about. And then the other thing I realised was I just needed to do things on my own terms. And it's funny, I do lead with the heart. So it is a pun on a heart attack and a heart. I've always been someone that feels. And so for me, I now follow my heart. I follow if something doesn't feel right. My heart obviously was telling me I wasn't in the right spot. And I know it sounds a bit woo, but it's how it worked out for me. And I rebuilt. So I was coming from a marriage where I separated, it's a do as I say, not as I do approach, because I just wanted to be I wanted it to be easy and not hassle-free, no conflict. So I left my marriage with a very insufficient deal in terms of financial payments. And I don't regret it now. I probably would have done it differently if you'd faced with it now, but I'm very lucky that my girl's father and I get along really well in terms of we have the number one motivation, which is our children. Now, I will argue that if money had have been too involved, maybe that wouldn't have happened for me, but I always tell my clients to push it and make sure that you get what you need. So that's one of the other things that I've learned the hard way. Yeah. And if you want a little giggle, I've learned that there is another acronym to the word STD. And that would
actually transmitted debt. Yes, I like that one. I've used it a few times myself in the past because it's absolutely spot on. But Amanda, I'd love to, how do you go from a heart attack at 34 to, qualifying 3 times in the World Championships as an Ironwoman? I mean, that's a massive leap. Talk us through that.
You did ask me if I was going to be transparent, Wishy. So not long after that, so we were at age 34. At age 36, the next blow to my life came along when I was diagnosed with melanoma. I laugh now because it's just such an Amanda thing. We do joke in my house, there are Amandaisms. There are some Amandaisms. And I was feeling quite sorry for myself, and that how many times is this brick wall going to present itself right in front of my nose? And a bit of a control freak, if I must be honest. And how do you control cancer? Like, seriously, this is what was going through my head. So instead of dealing with that, I chose something that I could control, which was training for an Ironman. So before I'd even had the operation for the melanoma that was in my leg, by the way. So training or running was off the cards for such a long time. I'd signed up for my first Ironman. And the lessons that I learned, both physically and emotionally, about myself in that period is why I continued doing it. But also, it's allowed me to use all the spin-on words. My business is called Endurance Financial. My book is called Financially Fit Women. And just like you said at the start of this podcast, I am the true definition of aligning fitness and financial fitness together, because it's the same habit-forming responses that you need to get either of them. And so triathlon reminds me every day, and my commitment to triathlon reminds me every day of what I need to be doing for both myself and my clients.
Yeah, I love that. What are the essential qualities that you've distilled from that experience that has not only been useful to you as a triathlete, but in the Ironwoman exercise, but also developed your role as a financial planner?
So you've got to have a plan, don't you? Like, I can't just go and say I'm going to train haphazardly to do a half Ironman or a full Ironman for that matter. So I've got to have a plan. So it's a plan to put time aside to do something, and you have to form healthy habits. And the only way to do that is to take small steps. And again, we are very aligned, and this is the first time we've met, Bushy, and you used my marathon analogy, so I can't even use that. You can't pick up a book and run a marathon the next day. But you've got to trial and error as well. So, for example, you may find that a certain, doing sprints works for you, or training 3 days a week and having 2 rest days works for you. It's the same with anything finance. I use investments as an example. You may think you want to do shares, property trusts. You may just want to put your money in a bank account, but you've got to start somewhere, start small and figure out what sits right for you. And the other thing that I learned is you've got to come back to self in whatever you do. And again, you've mentioned this, and I'm already loving this podcast because you had me. I just wanted to be listening to whoever your special guest was at the start of this podcast, because I was like, this man's great. I can't wait to hear this guest. It is that you've got to come back to self, and you've got to be aligning your financial goals with who you are, what you truly want for your personal wealth, and what sits with your values. And I do that in triathlon training every day. It's where I'm still single mum, so it's my alone time that frees my mind up, so I'm not coming home grumping at my children all the time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, translating that then, how does your brand of financial planning differ from the mainstream perceptions of financial planning, which in many cases, unfortunately, aren't that good?
I think they're getting better. And I was having this conversation only yesterday, and it's not discrimination, because I could have easily been this person. And they were telling me that their financial planner that they use was very dry and kind of felt like he was reading from a textbook. Yeah. And I was actually sticking up for someone because I believe in habits, Bushy. And as I said to you, I kind of rebelled from what I was taught early on, whereas this particular person may not have. And this is the habit that he's been forming for however many years he's been in this particular industry. And so for me, I'm personable, or I try to be personable. I try to be transparent. And transparent not just in my own life, but every single client I meet teaches me something, which then I can pass on to someone else. So when you meet with me, you'll get me just chatting away and telling you, the first thing I'll tell most people is there's not much I haven't heard in 20 years, and you're not alone. So, we can bring it back to those fear parameters. And so I take my clients on a journey as opposed to putting Band-Aids or telling them that they have to do something. So I take them on a journey of self-discovery, really, so that they can be aligned to the plans that we will eventually put in place.
I love that. I love that. Well, I want to sort of circle back now and get you to talk us through your own personal money story in terms of where your own money beliefs came from. What money fears did you grow up with? Because we've talked about fears a couple of times already. Have they changed? If so, and how? And as important, I'd love your thoughts on how you manage your emotions when it comes to money. We spoke in the green room before this about rational, intellectual thinking versus emotions, and I think we're both on the same page in that I think regardless of what we like to say, a lot of our decision-making around money is still emotionally driven. It should be and it has to be. So can you sort of walk us through, your money beliefs, fears, and the emotional part of your own journey?
It is, and I learned a fair bit quite early on in life. I grew up quite quickly in my teens for a whole host of other reasons. And a part of that was an understanding of probably the financial life in my family. So my mum became a single mum herself when I was a teenager. And so through her lens, I saw how tough women of that particular age bracket did it. And one of the stories I'll often say is I remember this particular day. Sorry, Bushy, this is also how I financial plan. I tell stories all the time.
I love stories.
I remember this one particular day, and I remember saying to her, Mum, why don't you just do something for yourself or go out and, she said, because I'm working really hard to pay the home loan off, and it wasn't back in that day. She was, there's blessed and, compared to today, it wasn't a lot yet, but it's still a part-time single woman wage. Yeah. And she said, but her words that still stick like glue to me today is, I don't have much in super and won't have much to leave you and your brother, so I want to pay this home loan off. And instantly at that age, I said to her, Mum, we don't want anything if and when you go. I would rather see you live life. But what I realised quite early on was this fear concept that my mum had, is she wanted to be able to provide for her family, whether it was in life or death. And that your own home is not an asset and it's not an income-producing asset. And I learnt that very, very quickly, as my mum was paying off this loan that wasn't going to make anyone any money unless she carved it. Yeah. And so that's probably the start of my money journey, but also my fierce independence when I was a child was that I worked. I worked from the moment I was allowed to, and I worked hard. And so for me, I supported myself pretty much financially from my teens. And I liked that feeling. I liked not having to rely on anyone for money. I remember when, again, there's stories. I remember when I had my first child and I was taking her to the local shopping centre, and it was back in the days there was no paid maternity leave for me. And I remember seeing a shirt that I liked, and I rang my husband and said, would I be able to buy this shirt? And then he said, of course. His response was, of course, it's our money. And I hung up the phone and said, I am never going to feel like that ever again. And that was so what I'm trying to say to you is I learned my own personal stories from my own, and I took them with me and I take them with me today, those feelings that I like or not like. And then I've built up, I've paid myself a salary from my business, which so many people do not do right from the word go, which means that I'm slowly rebuilding my superannuation from the time that I've had out of the workforce. I've still got my insurances. I have an investment property that I worked so hard to get, and I've chosen that in an area, not that I would live, but more so where I believe growth is, because I will flip that property or it will be my passive income later on. However, it's a property that I know that I have. If I have to go, if I'm destitute and I have to go and live, I will still go and live in it. So I thought very clearly about what I wanted my money to do for me. But my first, and here's another story for you. So my first, when I first started working, I worked for Colonial First State as a personal assistant, right? It was just that day job while I was figuring out what I wanted to do. Yep. And I was lucky because I got that insight and started doing just regular deposits into regular investments. And then, unfortunately, my husband's father passed away and no one had any money except me. And I sold my shares to pay for the funeral. But I had them there. I'd invested them wisely. I didn't make a loss. So even before I really jumped into financial planning, I'd somehow gained this insight just by listening to the people that I was working for. And, here we are today, still doing what I want to do. I'm contemplating what next for me. It will not be crypto, I can tell you that, for me. Again, it's not what I want. But the biggest thing that I know about myself, Bushy, and I'm banging on about it a bit lately, is really understanding what retirement looks like for myself and defining that word. Because, I'm not sure when this will go to air or anything like that, but we've seen a lot in the press lately, the hoo-ha of the pension age has gone up to 67 and it's causing this whole ruckus. And to me, it's like, really, there's not many of us by the time we get there that will be eligible for the pension. And so I've defined right now what's important to me and retirement, what I want it to look like.
Well, let's go straight there, because I talk about living by design, and so I'd love for you to paint a really vivid picture and word story around, what does your lifestyle look like at that stage? So paint that out for us, and then supporting that, talk to us about the investment strategy that you're adopting and what it is now and how it's changed and will continue to change over time to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think the first thing I want to say is that I've spent a lot of time working on me and what I want. So what I tell anyone here is my story and what works for me. And so the only thing I want people to do is, if you get these light bulbs, well, that could be me, then go and visit it. But don't think this is exactly what everyone should need to do. But one of the biggest things I spend money on is bikes and travel at the moment. Yeah. And you can see into my money mindset and my history when I tell you that my only real financial goal at this point in time is to take my children overseas for a triathlon every year. Now, the money mindset part of that comes into who in their right mind thinks traveling overseas has to be attached to a race that you have to pay with. But you can tell that I've come from scarcity. I need a reason to go overseas. I want my girls to think that there's a reason to go overseas, that we are not made of money to go on an overseas holiday every day. So what's really key for me is I know that is my goal right now. So I want to tick that off.
Yeah.
And I put a monetary value to it. So I do not go, I need $10,000 a year to travel every year. I figure out what exactly I want to do, and then I put the money value to it. I think that's really, really important for anyone. The second thing I do is I realize that what am I willing to give up now to get that goal? Okay, because I also have a retirement. So I call it sacrificial spending or intentional spending, whichever way you want to flip it. I do not use the word budget anywhere, as you've realized in my book. I don't like it because it's a negative word. And so therefore, then what I do is saying, what am I spending on now that is sacrificing my future? And so those two things go through my head. Now, I can't envisage ever retiring in the sense of I'm going to do nothing and sit on my hands and watch the wall. For me, I have this passion to want to do pro bono work for domestic violence or empowering women. So for me, I'll do a retirement where I may be fully retired, but I still want to be giving 2 days a week somewhere else, which means that I'm either going to keep working for those other 3 days and get some money, but I'll still need to fund it, or I'm not working and I'm taking a passive income from my investment property. I don't want to sell my investment property, so I'm factoring that in as a passive investment. For me, retirement, as I get older, if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, I'll go on holidays and I'll probably move to the country because I'm just sick of the amount of cars on the road in Melbourne. And now I'm thinking, not that I want it in a hurry because my eldest is nearly 21, but I think I'm going to be one of those grandparents that want to give lots to my grandkids and continue to give to my family. So I've even thought about the fact that kids aren't going to stop costing me. It's just going to be grandkids, not kids. And so my retirement is really mapped out in terms of in today's dollars what I want and what I'm going to do. And I can't see my personal retirement costing me much less than what I'm on now, because I'm already filling in all those gaps of time that I'm going to have as opposed to money.
I love that. And what I also love about what you've just shared, Amanda, is that our lifestyle goals do change and evolve. So as long as we've got a GPS, I like to refer to it as a GPS rather than a roadmap, because if we've at least got a picture of how we want to live, how much that lifestyle costs, and then we can determine what sort of income producing nest egg that we need to create that's going to fund that. Then within that, and between now and then, if our goals change, at least we've got a GPS that we can revisit on a regular basis and say, well, this has changed, we need to slightly alter that. But at least we've got a directional device that's focusing us on the end game, and we are investing in a way that's going to help us achieve that. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, your own investment strategy in terms of what was it when you started, how has it evolved over time, and where's it heading? You talked a bit about shares, and you talked a bit about property, and you're excluding crypto from the equation, but can you talk to us generically about that?
Yeah, when we know which one's going to rule the world, maybe.
Yeah, and I love it. Can you talk about that for us, your investment strategy and how it's evolved over time?
So obviously when I worked at Colonial First State, you invest in what you knew, and it was all Colonial First State. And I remember the very first risk I took was in the Colonial First State geared fund. So I was like,
sounds like a bike. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? And my bikes are not an investment because they depreciate. So let's get that straight. I understand the difference between appreciation and depreciation. My investment strategy at the moment, you talked about time as well at the start. I don't have a lot of time at the moment. So my investment strategy is such that my investment property, I pay principal and interest on it because I want to own that property. My long-term goal is passive income from that property. I don't want to have to take a lump sum from my superannuation to pay for it. So it's going to be paid off sooner rather than later. Again, I work for myself, so I can control the income I get and don't need the tax deductions and all of those things. But from a personal perspective, you'll see me, I do two things, Bushy, because I like to dabble. I do like to take risks every so often, but not extensive risks. Remember, I still got two kids at home, and it's important. And I run my own business, so there's a risk in that. So I invest in a lot of ETFs, and I do it regularly. But I also will have a little bit of play money every so often to invest in stocks that I'm interested in. Yeah. But my investment strategy is very similar to when occasionally I go to the casino and play roulette, that I'll have a specific amount of money that I put on that roulette table. I don't really, but it sounds good. Every so often I do, yeah. I'm going back to my banking days. See, we're at the casino all the time. No, we weren't. But I'll always take my wins, yeah, and I will not reinvest my wins. So on that roulette table, if the number 6 comes up, which is my lucky number, and I win, I take that win and it goes into my pocket, and it does not go back down onto that table. It's very similar with shares for me. I don't get greedy. If I've made a decent gain, then I will sell those shares and I will then just pop it back into the bank and figure out what the next thing is. But normally for me, the win goes into one of the ETFs, just the steady growing. So it's a very conservative approach. But I'm also investing in my business in that I will review my superannuation and all of those things from a financial perspective as well, what suits me when it does.
Love it. No, beautifully said. So if we look back on your investment journey so far, what's been both your best and your worst investment, and what have you learned from each of those?
Investing in men, don't go there. No, I'm joking. I'm not good at those choices. Stick to the shares, Amanda. Sorry. Do you know what? And I sound like such a financial advisor here, but diversification and regular investment. Yeah, you can never go wrong. Diversify. And if you don't have time to diversify, just pick an ETF that diversifies. And that's the best thing that came into my life was ETFs, honestly, because the pain of deciding what and rebalancing, it just all happens for me. And they're passive, so they're cost friendly. The worst bit of investment advice I had, let me think about it, because obviously I give myself most of the advice. Do you know what the worst bit of investment advice I had, and I don't know whether you're going to class it as that, but is sponsorship. So my business sponsoring things and really not understanding the return on investment for me. Not, I say that I do my due diligence, but see, my biggest issue is my inability to say no to people. And so if someone says, Amanda, could you sponsor this? You can advertise, you'll probably get business. Yeah, nah. That's one of those nah moments where really focusing in on what my return on investment is when I put my business money towards something is probably where I've still got a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. Look, I want to swing into the subject that's right at your heart, and that is your great book, Financially Fit Women. But before we sort of circle into that, can you sort of give us a little bit more color around what are some of the other unique financial obstacles that women face over and above what we've spoken about so far?
One of them is ourselves. We're our worst enemy, women. Yeah, you've heard of women's intuition. It exists. We just forget to bring it into ourselves. And often we are so busy fighting the good fight of equality and trying to be perfect and awesome at everything, that admitting that we're not so great at our finances is something we don't want to do, because we feel one little chink in our armor means that we lose all the confidence in everything else. So our self-confidence is our biggest issue. And I say to anyone, male or female, if your intuition is telling you that something's wrong, chances are it is, or you just haven't had the education around it. So go with your gut feeling. If you think something's wrong, then it probably is. And you can't, hide in the cupboard all that time. That's one of the unique challenges. I've mentioned the other one, superannuation. It's a challenge. Again, we say the book's Financially Fit Women, but it's everyone, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially the younger generation, superannuation seems to be this concept that people don't care about, but 11% of your wage is going into it now. It is your money, whether you like it or not. So who are you not to take an interest in it? And I question, if you're that entitled, so get on my high horse a little, if you're that entitled that you're not interested in your superannuation, then have a good look in the mirror, because this is going to be what we rely on, not the age pension, your superannuation. And we are very lucky in Australia. I doubt that it's going to be taxed for a very long time. So it is going to be everyone's best friend once they retire.
Absolutely, totally agree. Are there any other big mistakes that we and women in particular are making around money then, Amanda?
Look, I think insurance is another one. We don't value what we financially are to our families. And I talk about our incomes being one of our biggest assets and protecting it. In today's society, Bushy, we know that it is the increased cost of living. There are more and more couples needing to work to pay their mortgages and things like that off. So, we're gone are the days where mum stays at home permanently. More and more women choose to keep their career. And what we do know is every pay rise that male or female get, apparently it's absorbed in our cost of living. So apparently with every pay rise, the cost of living goes up as well. And so I don't think women in particular realise that their salary is just as important. And if they lose that salary, they're just as important, or vice versa. The cost to the family, if the mum is a stay-at-home mum, the cost to the family of running around kids or having to decrease another wage. So I think that one of the greatest mistakes we make is not being able to value ourselves from an insurance perspective as well.
Yeah, beautifully said. Well, that's a great entree into your great book, Financially Fit Women. Can you start off by telling us why did you write it? What are the key messages, and who's it best suited for, other than women, obviously?
Yeah. So it was designed to be a catalyst for change, as you can tell from my conversations and some of my bugbears in terms of the accessibility of financial guidance. And also from a peace of mind perspective of being able to do it in the confines of your own home and not having to share too much. It gives you that sense of empowerment to then take the next steps. So the idea of Financially Fit Women was to provide guidance and tools to women, not only women, to anyone willing to read the pages and take the wisdom. But it's practical. There's practical strategies. It kind of takes you on a chronological journey of your life, doesn't it? It starts with money for today. Well, it actually starts with your history, your money history, and figuring out who you are when it comes to money. And it works through money for today, works through money to tomorrow, to even legacy, to what you're going to leave for your family. So it really is a roadmap to what you want, for you to create what you want. And again, it's only general because I'm not allowed to give personal advice, but who could give personal advice in a book anyway, because I don't know every reader. So it really is that one-stop shop. You know, everyone I speak to has their highlighters and writes in the columns, so you can take as much as you want from it or as little as you want, but I don't think it's going to be a book that you lend to a friend, because otherwise all your handwriting in the columns are going to be there. You want it sitting in your shelf so you can go back to it.
Yeah, it's a really good workbook in that sense. And I love there's plenty of illustrations. It's really easy to read. I love the formatting of the book. You've done it exceptionally well. But tell me, Amanda, in your words, what's the essence of financial fitness?
So financial fitness is a journey. So again, we get stuck. As soon as we say finance, it's money, dollars, cents, numbers, spreadsheets. It's more than that. And you said at the start, you probably can explain it better than I. Your definition of wealth, is not necessarily money related. Wealth encapsulates everything. I believe that, just like you said, the financial part of the journey is self-development, is personal development, and it's an act of self-love. We see everyone go to the doctors and chiros and counselors and do yoga and meditation for all these other beings of ourselves. But who is really going out and seeking the guidance they need for money, which is 49% of people link stress and anxiety to money.
Spot on. Absolutely spot on. Yeah, no, 100%. And you make a really good point in the book when you say that financial fitness starts in the mind. So how can we improve our money mindset, Amanda?
So you've got to revisit. You know what? Unfortunately, sometimes, like most things that you've got to better, you've got to revisit your traumas too, or figure out just why you are the way you are. So, I used the word sacrificial spending earlier. Maybe you need to figure out what triggers you to go and buy, 10 pairs of shoes in one sitting, or, is it because you're celebrating, or is it because you're commiserating? Figure out who you are when it comes to money. Are you a spender or a saver when you want to celebrate? These type of things, because if you don't know the mechanics of your brain, you won't be able to use those mechanics to build your wealth later on.
Yeah, no, that's extremely well said. I want to sort of jump into the business side of the equation, because you've got a great section in there around money in business. And to kick that off, what mistakes are many of us making, and how can we build the strong financial foundations for entrepreneurial success as you see it?
I think COVID brought around a lot of this as well, is that we've seen, and we do talk, it is a book specifically, written with the women in mind. The majority of new businesses in COVID were women-led businesses, home-based businesses. And the growing, both in men and women, the growing incidence of people wanting to start their own businesses to create that family lifestyle and to have time. So some of the biggest mistakes that I see are not planning. That whole plan, failing to plan is planning to fail. The statistics around businesses are really quite scary, as in, 95% of businesses will fail because of cash flow. That's huge. So for me, from a business perspective, not valuing yourself and the time you put in. So if you're a service-based business in particular, trying to figure out what your true hourly rate is and what you're going to charge for those services from day dot, because what I see consistently is it is so hard to increase your prices as you go along. So you're better off starting high because you'll struggle to increase them later on. I spend a lot of time with my business mentoring clients. A lot of it is around their value proposition and the amount of money they charge or what their break even is. So they don't understand cash flow because we talk about profit and loss and budget, but what we really don't understand as business owners is the only important number is that there's money in the bank to pay wages and pay bills.
Yeah, very, very good point. I wanted to circle back to super now because we've spoken a bit about super already. Something I'd like you to expand on. Do you think that investing in super is actually going to be enough, or do we need to invest beyond super? And if so, in what and how do you think?
Oh, see, it depends what age, isn't it? Because with 11%, if you're young and you're taking 11%, you're going to have a nice superannuation balance. But for me, it all comes down to individuality. Again, there are so many free resources, and I mentioned some in the book, to go and do the calculations of how much super is enough for you or where your superannuation sits. Again, I'm quite conservative, and we talk about access to super and things like that. If I'm advising someone, or let's say I'm advising myself, so I'll tell you what I do. I do not put all my money into superannuation. I'm 47 years old, so I can't touch it for another 13 years, and then I have to retire to touch it. So we've got to remember that there's a couple of parameters to touch your superannuation. And I don't have backup income. It is only me. So I want that peace of mind money pool outside of super, should I want to semi-retire before the age of 60 or till I can touch it. So again, I'm all for a little bit of fingers in every pie type of concept because it's what makes me feel comfortable. But I also think every single person should have an emergency fund, and that amount of emergency fund will differ. You know, people will throw 6 months of salary, do this, do that. I don't have a set amount. I can't tell you. You might go through $1,000 a week. So who am I to tell you how much you need? But it needs to be something that you understand what that's for and what it's covering.
Yeah.
And I think even in retirement, Bushy, we still need an emergency fund as well. I think that's really important. So that's what I believe about super. I also think that a lot of people do not understand the tax ramifications, both pros and cons, of putting money into super. So it's really important that when you work out your super contribution strategy, you actually work out what's truly the most beneficial for you, not just by what's going into super, but what's tax, not tax, and if you can get offsets from the government and all those type of things. So I think it's an important path to go down. It's not just go, I'm going to salary sacrifice up to the maximum. Figure out if that actually is the best contribution strategy for you and get the most you can out of it all.
Yeah, beautifully said. Now, coming back to the subject of the book, Financially Fit, you give 5 great financially fit tips. Can you just summarize what they are?
Oh, you're testing me now. Is one of them ask for help? One of them will be ask for help. The other one will be family trusts. I'm a big fan of family trusts, and it's at the back of the book. I'm going to open it now because I can't remember exactly what they were in what order. You've really
sorry to put you on the spot on this, Amanda.
You did. Ask for help. I got the first one right. See? Ask for help. Oh, accountants versus financial advisors. Amanda, what's the difference between an accountant and financial advisor? Accountants are generally reactive, and we're at fault for that as humans. We tend to give our accountants things after the fact. Now, you know, your tax returns due by October. So if you're handing in October, you're giving your accountant information that's retrospective, and you've already lost 3 to 4 months of your following year. And if you're a business, you can nearly lose a year. Whereas financial planners generally should be proactive, which means we're planning for the future. And so there's no such thing as accountants versus financial planners.
Need both.
Yes. And legal advisors. And do you know, the biggest way to decide who you need is if they're willing to work with each other, because at the end of the day, you are paying them for their services. You are paying them for your services, and they should be taking that and doing whatever you need for them. I do remember my last one. Money talks and wealth whispers.
Great, I love that expression.
Yeah,
By the way.
don't get poor trying to look rich. They're all the whole. And the other one I really like, I'm pretty sure it's a Warren Buffett one, is you only see who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out. I like that one.
It's so right. Yeah.
And it comes down to sacrificial spending, doesn't it? I have plenty of experience to tell you that what we deem wealthy people do not necessarily have a very good cash flow. So some people will have the fancy cars and the fancy houses, and they're in debt to their eyeballs, and all of their surplus cash is just going to servicing a debt that's not necessarily, and we talked about that, appreciating assets. You know, the 6 cars are not going to make you money at the end of the day. And so be really mindful of keeping up with the Joneses, and live within your means and stick to who you are. That's a really, really big one for me. Build your own wealth the way you want for what you want.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. It's not what you earn, it's what you save that starts the journey. And if you get clear on how you want to live and forget Insta everything, and the superhero models that they try to paint on that exercise that have no relationship to reality, and get in alignment with your vision for your life and your values for what's important to you, that's a far bigger step. But it comes back to what you said before, the ability to say no, and that gets really hard for a lot of people. So sort of bring this all to a head then, Amanda, where do we need to start in getting financially fit, and what initial steps do we need to take?
Oh, it's a plan. You need to plan. You need to figure out what your plan is. Not create a plan, but what is it that you want? And you said it, what is wealth to you? What is success to you? And then you add the money to it later. So you've got to figure out, what do I want my life to look like? I think it's Mae West, said that money's a sixth sense. Yeah. You need it to make the other 5 work.
Yes, exactly right.
So, there's that concept there, is money is normally attached to any goal that we have, but have the goal first, then attach the money. Because if you just strive for the money, you won't get a good plan in play, because you just won't be motivated by the right things.
So I've often said that if you're really clear on how you want to live and you get excited about that, it's both a magnet and a compass, because you'll ride over the inevitable speed humps that are going to occur along the journey if it's vivid and attractive enough. But it also gives you a compass, because every decision you're making day to day is based on, is it taking me closer to that or further away? Yeah. So I can't agree with you more. Get really clear on the vision first, and then work out the money side of it afterwards, rather than chasing money for money's sake.
It comes to that money and emotions thing, doesn't it? If you're driven by a goal that's linked intrinsically to you, you're driven by the emotion. So your money decisions around that will be driven by your emotion to want to achieve something else. The other part of anything that you want to do, we say you've got to start. You've got to start. And truly, to start any wealth building exercises, you've got to understand what your spending is, so that you can uncover your surplus, so you've got money to start with. And I think that it's something we don't like doing. Normally, we don't like doing it because every Tom, Dick and Harry puts the word budget in front of it, which just instantly gets you back up, or you think someone's going to tell you to stop spending on something. Yeah. So I call it a spending plan. Let's uncover a surplus. Let's get, and it comes from that fitness concept, doesn't it? Positive endorphins encourage positive endorphins. So if we can find a surplus, we're more likely to want to find another surplus and another one. So, and I like to say that we try and create intentional spending. We know what we're spending on. And so if you truly want to start on your journey, you've got to figure out what life looks like for you now.
Love it. Beautifully said. I want to transition now into the ambush round, Amanda, which is where I give you a blindfold and cigarette and hit you with the questions that you get asked on every podcast. The first of those is, what's your favourite quote and why?
My favourite quote, which I think would be no surprise to anyone listening, is, I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life. And that's by the famous female poet, of course, a female, Maya Angelou.
That's a great quote, actually. That's a really good quote. What about in the literary field? Apart from your great book, what's the other top book that you'd recommend we read and why?
I'm going really left field here because I don't read a lot. I really don't have time, and I don't like that saying, so I'm going to rephrase it. I don't find it of great importance to give time to it. So it's not that I don't have time. I use my time in other ways. However, going completely opposite direction to a female poet, one of my favourite books that just intrigues me so much is David Goggins, You Can't Hurt Me, you know, the Navy SEAL, because I sit there thinking, well, that's swearing. It's not really a feminine book. And I wonder if you get feminine clients, and I wonder how females react to this. But then I really do take from his challenges. So he resonates with me. So I know it's probably not a really common book, but there it is.
No, well, he does. He inspires a lot. I've talked to a lot of people over the years who are very inspired by what he's done personally and what he challenges other people to do. So it's still a good read. Coming back to the old self-help wealth exercise, what's a personal happy habit, rewarding ritual, or daily discipline that you employ regularly that's contributed most to your success today?
See, if it has to be healthy ritual, the wine drinking that I do to balance out my exercise doesn't count. So, but I try and move every single day, and that's one. But the other one is really old school, and it works my brain every single day, is before I shut my computer or leave my desk every single day, I hand write a to-do list for the next day. So it's left my brain. I get to my computer and I'm straight into work knowing exactly what I've got in the day. And I have done it for over 35 years. I've made a list every single night for over 35 years. Even when I'm on holidays, I do it.
Love it. I'm very much the same. I was born and bred into the list writing exercise, and there's something, I've said this before, but there's something tangible about writing it freehand rather than typing it on a keyboard. It just seems to imprint more indelibly on the subconscious, I think.
There's studies to say that writing will actually help with the memory.
There you go. That makes, and it also means if you've written it down, you can relax for the evening. Now it's all covered, and you know what the next day looks like. So there's a whole bunch of benefits to that, rather than staring at the ceiling, worrying about what am I going to do and what's urgent, what's important. Great advice. Look, I really enjoyed the conversation, Amanda. If we just summarise what we've talked about today, what are your key takeaways and must-do actions to get financially fit?
Other than buy my book, Bushy. Start. Please start. Please don't be scared anymore. That is you are not alone. Remember, you're not alone. And the only person that can change your life is the person looking back at you in the mirror. So just start.
Love it. I've often said, Amanda, it's the start that stops most people, actually. Yeah. So I 100% agree. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to do something, and then you'll evolve as you go. But get started, because time is one of the key ingredients to your ultimate success. So make sure it's working for you, not against you in that regard. Yeah. Awesome. Now, for those that have really resonated with what you've shared with us today, Amanda, how can we find out more and get more involved with you?
So my website is endurancefinancial.com.au. I'm a good old Insta girl, just because that's some of my demographics. So I'm at Endurance Financial. But, please reach out. It's amanda@endurancefinancial.com.au. If you've got a question, just pose it to me. I'm pretty accessible, and I love speaking, as you can tell. So I'm happy to chat.
I love it. You mentioned before we hit the record button your course. Do you want to sort of tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I've got a course that's a bit of an upstep from the book. So if you've read the book and you want more help but not sure whether you're ready for that one-on-one advice piece, or you're not a book reader like me and you just want to get straight into the whole, I'm going to commit to this and get it done, I've got a course of the same name, so Financially Fit Women. It's called Financially Fit Bootcamp, and it really is just an extension of the book, and it gets you doing the same activities and things like that, but it's a little bit more interactive than in the confines of paper.
I love it. And we'll make sure that we put the link for that in the show notes for all of those who are interested in taking the next step. And I just want to mention that you've been very generous in giving away a free copy of your book, Financially Fit Women. But as always, I'm going to challenge everyone to take some action to earn the book. So we'll decide on the best email if you send us to hello, that's HELLO at knowhowproperty.com.au, and answer the question, my best learning from Amanda's discussion on becoming financially fit is, and hit us up. So make sure you do that.
Let's do another one. So I'll play 2 books just because I'm having a giggle at myself today. See who can provide what they think was the best Amandaism in the the podcast as well. We'll give away 2 books and we'll see what made people think that's an Amandaism.
I love it. All right, that's a great one, Amanda. Thanks for jumping in on that. And also, I know you've also been very generous in providing freedom fighters with complimentary access to the downloadable workbook that accompanies Financially Fit Women. We'll provide a link to that in the show notes so that you've got something tangible that you can work alongside as you're working through the book. So, look, been a great conversation, Amanda. We really enjoyed it. I feel like we could talk for hours, but we've only just scratched the surface. So we'll talk again in the future. But I really want to thank you for your very generous time, and let's make sure we keep the conversation going.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, your home for property investment insights and inspiration. And don't leave yet until you've taken the next step towards living by design by getting my award-winning book, Get Invested, absolutely free when you sign up at knowhowproperty.com.au or bushymartin.com.au. And finally, make sure you subscribe to Property Hub to get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration, along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's leading property show for red-hot property investing news and insights, direct from industry leaders and influencers. Remember to always get invested in your knowledge, and I look forward to seeing you next time.